What's up, randos?
Hello.
Welcome back into the Fandom at Random podcast. I am Ed.
I am Brian.
And we are excited to be here today. And actually, another quick round of applause. If you haven't already seen our... Yeah, there. If you haven't already seen our episode last week, Eric Fallon. Eric Fallon, man, you did a great job.
Yes, sir.
Did a great job. We had a special guest star on. We did our top 10 fictional movie bands. That was a blast. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. And
it's a good one.
Speaking of seeing it, if you're not seeing these beautiful mugs right now, go to fandomatrandom.com. Click the watch button. That'll bring you right to our YouTube page. You can like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. You know how it goes.
We got a good amount of content up there now, so it's worth going to check out.
But, Brian, we have a very evil topic to cover today.
Evil residents.
A very evil residents. Yeah. So we're going to get right into things. There's no news at random because we want to get right into that. But I have to mention this, and you may be staring at our centerpiece right here on the table today.
That's not Resident Evil.
It's not Resident Evil, but we need to at least mention this because this is big, terrible news. And it's our fandom fatality of the week.
Finish him.
So very sad. Kentaro Miura, the creator of Berserk, so the mangaka, the creator of it, he has passed away, only 54 years old, heart complications. It's a bummer. It kind of explains some of like the turbulent release schedule of the Berserk manga over the last couple of years. But I mean, Berserk is one of the most prolific manga and anime ever.
Can we rewind for 1 second? Did you say mangaka?
Yeah, that's what they're called, the creators, mangaka.
Okay. I thought you like messed up on manga, but I'm like, no, he's too big of a fan to ever mess that up, so that's got to be something.
Did you just question my anime cred, bro?
For the ignorant folk like me, mangaka is the creator of a manga.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, got it.
Yep, so unfortunately, he has passed away, and it sucks, man. Berserk is incredible.
It was big, even just all over social media. Like, people I didn't even know were in anime were posting it. Like, this is such a sad event, you know.
And again, if you're watching this or listening to this now because you're a Resident Evil fan and you're not really an anime fan, do yourself a favor. Go check out Berserk, because if you like Resident Evil, you'll probably like Berserk, because that shit is brutal.
Yeah, I mean, you showed me a little bit of it, and I know I'd love it.
Yeah, it's badass. So, rest in peace, Kentaro.
Pieces.
Hopefully you're not fighting Griffith in hell. All right. So before we get into, we're going to do a Resident Evil ranking list. So all the mainline Resident Evils, we're going to rank them from worst to first.
Numbered entries only.
Yeah, numbered entries only. We're not going to get into some of the other spin-offs and shit like that. So,
nope.
And before we get into that, Brian, I want you to give maybe like a quick 5 to 10 minute, I don't want to say spoiler-free, but if you cannot mention anything major, let's talk about Resident Evil Village. So Resident Evil 8, it is launched. You've been doing the Let's Plays videos, which they're on our YouTube. If you haven't already checked it out.
3 parts out so far. They've come out pretty good, gotten some good feedback. But yeah, no, to wrap it up, I'm about halfway through, I think. Maybe a little less than halfway through. Resident Evil 7 was probably, you'll find out what it's ranked on my list, but it's definitely one of my favoriter ones.
Let's make up some words to
and
describe
this is a direct sequel to 7, so it's also in first person again, and it follows Ethan Winters and his wife after the spoilers from 7, after him and his wife escape the events of 7. And at the beginning of the game, I mean, they steal their baby. So Chris Redfield, not Redfield.
You have my baby!
Wesker, I think it's him. Yeah. Steals their baby, kills his wife.
Freaking Wesker, man. That guy's always showing up.
Such a dick, man.
Yeah.
And based on the cover, I'm guessing he's some kind of werewolf. But who knows? I haven't gotten there yet. Anyway, mechanics are there. Setting is there. It's a really dark game. And even though 7 was dark, it still felt like I could see pretty good. On this one, I have a hard time. I think it's on purpose, but either way, it starts off a little frustrating. And
I noticed some of that too. I was watching some of your Let's Plays.
Yeah.
It may have been the the most recent one, but like when you're in the tunnels and like you're searching for shit, and it was just really like just really dark and kind of blacked out. I couldn't really see much.
And I gotta try adjusting it again because, like I said, I had no problems with 7. I've had no problems with any other games.
Check your gamma settings, boy.
Check the gamma. Anyway, so on to the review part of it. Mechanics are the same. Story's looking good.
So first person.
Yeah, it's still in first person. It feels really good. Exploration's really good. The setting is more old school Victorian when you get into the mansion.
I was getting a Bloodborne feel.
Yeah,
a little
it's
bit
more like a Bloodborne feel than a Rob Zombie Halloween feel, you know?
So would you say the game is more human than a human?
Yes, definitely. It throws me off a little bit. I like the setting in 7, and that's what really drew me to it, but I'm not hating it in 8. It's a little more confusing. You have a lot more open world to roam around in and when you're outside, and obviously werewolves are some of the bigger enemies. So,
and the vampires.
Combat's a little frustrating so far. They throw a lot of enemies at you at once. Sometimes you're not even supposed to beat them. It's a little confusing. Where the real game really picks up and where I'm at now is when you're in the mansion, you meet Lady Big D, and we all know her, the 9-foot tall, big busty lady. She fucks you up, and then you meet the hot...
Literally?
Yeah. No. But the hot
I was going to say, I might have to suck it up and play.
Yeah, no. The hot scary sister's like the most torn I've ever been on being scared in a game while being hard.
You got a fear boner. We call that a fear boner.
Yeah, and we both know I'm into it. So it gets weird, but it gets good. When the sisters are all introduced, you get the feeling that, okay, this is going to be scary. And... yeah, so where I'm at now, I had just defeated one of the bosses, and I'd say it's almost tied with 7 for me, but it's really good. Reviews are on point, and I have no real complaints right now.
Why do they hate Ethan Winters' hands so much?
This is actually good. Thank you for reminding me, because this is a good point. The only thing that bothers me is Ethan Winters should be a fucking hand cripple. Like, he should not be able to hold a gun or a knife or jerk off. Nothing. The thing, he gets one of his hands chopped off in the beginning of 7, and then they just staple it back on. He gets 2 hooks put through his hand in this one, and he's got to rip them both off the hooks. And then he's missing 2 fingers. Dude, healing chemicals don't do that much yet. So it's a little bit suspension of belief, but I feel bad for his penis, man. It probably hasn't been touched in a long time.
I mean, does he have like... It's not even a spoiler because you're not there yet, or I don't know if they've mentioned it, but
right.
I mean, maybe, and I haven't played 7, I haven't played 8. I've watched your Let's Plays, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, does he have maybe like a little something in him, a little bit of a virus that's like pumping him up,
not that
to
we
let
know
him
yet.
heal or like do all this crazy shit?
In 7, he was like a book nerd just looking for his girlfriend, which made it more interesting. In this one, he all of a sudden he has like a John Wick attitude, like he's like, I'm gonna kick the out of these werewolves, and I'm gonna kick ass and take names. So it may be. Yeah, he might. That would be a good write-up because he definitely has more badassery going on in this game.
All right, so you said you're roughly halfway through the game right now, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but...
From what I heard, you're looking at about like 8-10 hours for a quick story playthrough.
I mean, are you comfortable giving it a ranking, a random ranking
for right now? Yeah, I think I could, based on where I'm at now. Leaving out where the story goes, I'd say it's at about an 8 for me right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a solid ranking.
I think it can bump up, but I don't think it's going to beat out 7. Because they even said publicly that it's not as scary as 7.
Oh, they said it's nowhere near as scary as 7.
Yeah, but I have heard there are creepy parts that I haven't got to yet. So we'll see. I thought 7 was the perfect amount because I can't play Outlast. That shit scared me too much.
Dude, I can't play My Little Pony Island Adventure without getting too scared.
So 7, I thought, found the perfect balance. So they could amp it up a little more in 8, but I'm not complaining too much because they definitely keep things tense and interesting.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so an 8, that's solid. I mean, just watching your Let's Plays, I mean... It doesn't seem like there's too many jump scares, so I may have to check it out.
It's more like
the jump scares that do me in, man.
It's tension. Like I said, they throw enemy after enemy at you, in close spaces, so you don't know where to go.
With Lady D, it's the sexual tension.
Yeah, that tension.
I'd be playing that game like, God damn.
That tension is tight like a tiger, bro. The characters are great, and then the Duke is, I think he's the brother. They haven't said that yet. He's the guy you buy supplies off of, upgrade your guns. He is the breakout role right now. You'd think Lady D would be, but the Duke is by far the funniest motherfucker in the game.
Yeah, and I honestly thought when I was watching your Let's Play, I had to look it up. I thought it was Mark Hamill. It sounds like a Mark Hamill voice. It's not. I'd have to look it up again to see who does it.
Yep.
I didn't write that down, but it sounded like Hamill.
And in the headset, it sounds a lot more. And then I played it on my TV, not as much, but I think that adds to his appeal. To be honest, So that part's really cool. The pacing's really cool. The mansion is pretty confusing. Like I said, it kind of calls back to classic Resident Evil. You got a big mansion instead of an old farmhouse. So,
which quick pro tip I'll mention. I don't know if you knew this. I don't know if people listening, if you haven't played Resident Evil Village yet, or if you're planning on it, or you are playing it, don't sell any of the like the animal shit that drops.
Yeah,
because you get like the animal pieces and parts and shit that. Don't sell any of that shit.
Because I sold 2 crystal skulls so far, and I think that was a mistake.
Yeah, you want to save it because later on he actually takes it all for upgrades.
Ooh.
And he gives you overall upgrades in the game, and you can't farm that shit again.
Yeah, because you find crystal bones and shit. So
yeah, like once you expend that or sell it to him, it's gone. Like you want to save it for upgrades.
Son of a bitch.
So you done effed up,
all right,
Ron.
It was only 2 skulls, and I got a compensator out of it, I think. So
was it better than the Indiana Jones crystal skull? I'm sure it was.
Well, no aliens came out of the walls after I sold it, so we were good.
All right, let's get into our Resident Evil rankings.
Which 8 will be on here. I'm comfortable enough to rank this in my list.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is going to be an 8 down to 1 because obviously we're only doing mainline games here.
Easier.
And we're going to kind of combine some. Obviously, some of these games have had remakes.
Yes.
And that's going to tie into where the rankings fall. So we're counting the original, the OG game with the remake. I haven't played all of the Resident Evils, even though I'm terrified and I'm scared of horror and shit. Believe it or not, I actually have played a decent amount of them. I played 1 through 4. I think I dabbled in 5 and 6 a little bit.
5 and 6 you can't even get scared at.
They're not good.
Yeah, they're not good.
We'll talk about that in a bit. I did not play 7, and then I feel like I've played 8 because I've watched all your Let's Plays.
Yeah.
But let's kick it right off. So again, worst to first. Let's start at number 8. What is your least favorite mainline Resident Evil, Brian?
It's got to be Resident Evil 5. I mean, they introduced this whole partner system. You're in, Africa. I don't even really remember most of the game because I just breezed through it, and I was like, this sucked. This wasn't a Resident Evil game.
I remember this coming out, and it was like... Because this came out in, I think it was around 2005?
I think so.
No, 2009.
Yep.
It was announced in 2005, which means they were already working on it. And that timeline makes sense because guess what else around the mid-2000s was hugely popular?
Army of
Call of Duty,
yeah.
Modern Warfare. Mm-hmm. And everything, when this game came out, they said they literally were like, how can we add Call of Duty to Resident Evil? Let's mash them together, and that's what this game was.
Yeah, there was cover systems and shit. It didn't work at all. My brother had fun with it. He liked it a little bit, but he likes weird stuff like that. So, but I had no enjoyment. I didn't ever want to go play it again. Having a second person to play it with wouldn't have made it fun. It just... Resident Evil is about the scares, the atmosphere, the tension, and it had none of that.
Yeah.
And I think most people would agree.
That's enough said. Number 7. What is your 7th?
Resident Evil 6. It had its bright moments, but overall, it was an extension of 5. They kind of cut down on the cover system and the action, but it was still an action Resident Evil game. Yep. And like I said, the story, it was cool because you were playing different characters with the stories cutting through each other all the time.
Yeah, so Chris Redfield, Leon Kennedy,
right,
Jake Muller, Ada Wong, all the people that stuff. Yeah, people that keep showing up.
Yeah, so it was cool how the story all tangled together and you kept switching between them, but the camera angle, the over-the-shoulder shit, it didn't feel right. They went back to horror a little bit, but overall, it was an extension of 5, and that's why it's definitely second to last.
It's funny how they had that. it really was that kind of like 5 and 6 where they just missed the mark.
Yeah.
Like Capcom was just like effing up.
They swung and they missed.
And especially after another game that preceded these two that we're going to talk about in a little bit that was just a masterpiece.
Right.
But I think that's enough said, honestly, about Resident Evil's 5 and 6. I mean, they're they're not memorable.
They were a low point in the series for sure.
But now we're getting into, we're going into number 6 here.
Yeah.
Your sixth best pick.
Now they start getting better.
Yeah, it really does. I feel like here is where the tier break happens.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, now we're getting into Resident Evil. So what do we got at number 6?
All right, I had to go with Nemesis, Resident Evil 3. This was actually the toughest one because I love it, but also with the newer entries and stuff, it ended up being 6 on mine. I mean, Nemesis is by far the only reason it really hit hard because it was just Resident Evil 2 with new enemies, basically. But Nemesis made up for that because when you were going toe-to-toe with him, it was one of the tensest moments I have felt in gaming.
That and the remake, in my opinion, paled in comparison to the remake that preceded it, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
I haven't even played Resident Evil 3 Remake yet.
I played a little of it.
Yeah,
it's
so
it is what it is.
Yeah. The graphics were better, the story was still good. But Nemesis definitely took it to another level.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not that's why I mentioned like the tier break kind of happening. I think this was still, I would classify it as a good game.
Yeah.
It was still decent. It was just to me a letdown after you had like 1, 2, which built upon everything 1 did and did it better. So then 3 was just kind of a step back.
They kind of took things from both 1 and 2 and tried to merge it together. And while it was fun and it worked, it just didn't bring it. All
right, let's get into your number 5 pick.
All right, so this is where I think Resident Evil 8 falls because it's really good. I'm enjoying it a lot. The story seems like it's going some good, freaky places, and it's a direct sequel off 7, which you'll find out soon is a good game. And what I can tell so far from being about halfway through it, this is going to end up right under 7 for me because it does everything as well as 7 did, keeps the first-person perspective, and it still has some scares.
Yeah, and we don't have to spend too much time on that because we kind of
we just talked
explained
about
it all right in the beginning. So I think that's a solid spot though for it.
Yeah.
Speaking of Resident Evil 7, so now we're down to number 4 here already. So Resident Evil 7 Biohazard.
This was a pleasant surprise. We were just talking about changing the game and changing up the formula. This is when they went first person. And when I heard that, I'm like, oh, great, another Outlast remake. There's no way it's going to feel like Resident Evil. And oh my, was I surprised when I walked in that house and they had the sounds, the shadows, it was just creepy. And I felt like I was just in a first-person role of the first game, It worked so well. They nailed it, and it was scary as hell, and it was the first time I was playing a Resident Evil game since another one of my favorites that I was like, all right, I am glad I'm playing Resident Evil again.
Yeah, I mean, Resident Evil 7 is kind of, at least in Resident Evil circles, considered to be the scariest entry.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I would say the first one was, but that's because I was younger when I played it.
Yeah.
And it was like, but yeah, overall, I'd say 7 was the scariest.
Well, we're into our top 3
and
now.
The enemies. So, like I said, it was like a Halloween Rob Zombie version of Resident Evil, but at the end, the hillbilly hicks that you thought were such dickheads turned out to be like a really good family that were getting screwed over by this little girl, and it had a lot of emotion to it. It had some hot dude. So
freaking hot. Number 3, and this is where we kind of veered a little bit on where we wanted our rankings to be.
Yeah.
Because if it was me, this would have been at number 1.
Right.
But I'm fine. It's in the top 3.
I can see why, and I knew it was controversial when I put it there, especially with the remake. Resident Evil 2, the game itself was great. It was behind the first one, the best one, And then they came out with that remake, and I'd argue there hadn't been a remake like that up until this came out.
The remake is perfection.
Yeah,
the remake is incredible. And if you're lumping in, so Resident Evil 2, like, to this day, is one of my favorite games ever. Like, if I'm talking my top 10 games of all time, Resident Evil 2 is in there. You know, you get the two different, I remember the original that you had the two different, I believe it was the two different discs.
Yes.
You had Leon and you had Claire. And I used to always mainstay Claire, try to speed run that campaign. I know other people, they do Leon, but I loved it, man. You drop right in Raccoon City. The shit is hitting the fan. It builds right off of one.
Yeah, that intro was amazing. You know, the truck blowing up and you're stuck on both sides of the fire. And then the remake opened up on that
it shows
intro.
the truck driver getting there.
Added it, and it was just, like you said, perfection. Talk about enemies and villains. Nemesis was good. Mr. X was goddamn scary.
X gonna give it to you.
When you hear that, and you open a door, and all of a sudden it's like, oh shit! It's like the Jaws of video games.
And then going back to the original Resident Evil 2, just walking in like the abandoned police station.
Yeah.
And it's creepy as shit. I thought the puzzles were great. And having to you got to board up the windows. And then that first, you go in, you take that left to go down the hallway, and the liquor.
I was going to say, this was the introduction of the liquors.
Oh,
right?
dude, yeah. And that was like...
That was so scary.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's fantastic. To me, this would have been at number 1, but again, it's number 3. I'm fine with it being in the top 3.
I struggled with it being 2 or 3. I already have my number 1. It will always be my number 1, but I absolutely get, even after especially after the remake, why it would be number 1.
Well, let's work our way up to number 1, Brian.
Yes, let's
do
that.
What was your number 2?
The original, the one that kicked it all off. Number 2, Resident Evil, and PlayStation 1, not the GameCube remake. The one with tank controls and the fact that you could turn full 360 in like 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
It made the game better, in my opinion. That original game, what was so scary about it was having to hold R1, pull up your gun, then fire, and like not being able to move or turn. That's what made the game scary. And then, I mean, dude, the mansion with the clock ticking and, that first scene when you pass through the dining room, you walk up to some guy kneeling down on the floor, and that zombie just turns, and it's like, Resident Evil, and you just, gives me goosebumps.
The Umbrella Corporation.
Yeah, all right.
And that was one of, like, the things in all these games that always intrigued me the most. Like, it was the Umbrella Corporation. Like, I just found it so interesting, like, the shit they were into and like how they caused all this and how they had like a hand and all this effed up shit.
And it was funny. The animations in between like opening doors and stuff was classic.
Oh, cuts to black and then the door slowly just...
Or the dogs like... Rah, 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 rah,
dude.
You try to go out that front door.
Dude, like that scene, like when you take that right and you're going down the hallway and the dogs break through the glass.
Oh my God.
That is one of... It is burned in my brain from a young age, just screaming at the top of my lungs. Like, what the...
Holy shit, man. That would throw me on my back sometimes. And I had played it before, and it would still scare the living hell out of me.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it kicked it all off. The story, the gameplay, all of it. It has to be at number 2. Some would argue number 1, or some would argue number 3. But I picked number 2.
So, Brian... What is at number 1? And if people have been paying attention, process of elimination.
Right. The only one that's left, Resident Evil 4, was
fantastic.
By far my favorite Resident Evil game. The story, you're saving the president's daughter.
And even though you're wearing a PlayStation shirt.
Yeah. It did originate on GameCube, right? Yeah. Which was weird in itself. But yeah. The laser sights, the... over the shoulder, again, they switched it up. They went from the weird angles from the top and the bottom going over the shoulder.
This was much more so Resident Evil 1 through 3 was much more survival horror.
Yes.
This was more tactical shooter survival horror.
But while also holding on to the survival roots. Unlike 5 and 6...
5 and 6 was Call of Duty.
Yeah, they did not go full bore action and forget what the game was. It was a perfect balance between the two. And then the organization, for people like me with OCD, being able to switch your stuff around and lock it in your case. And then my favorite villain out of the whole series is the chainsaw Sackhead. It's like a mix between Sackhead Jason and Leatherface.
Yep.
And holy hell, running
that
from
little
those
button
dudes.
sequence, and he's like,
oh yeah, oh my god, just being in that village was scary as all hell. But I felt like it actually required some skill. You're actually aiming the gun. You have to shoot them in the leg or the head or whatever.
Sure.
You had more skill to the gunplay. The story got a little weird by the end, but everything about it I just loved. I thought it was best of both worlds. It was the pinnacle of gameplay in Resident Evil. That's why 4 had to pick go in my number 1 spot.
Yeah, and if you're listening and you want to see some good Resident Evil 4 like gameplay or a playthrough, go check out our buddy's 8-Bit Movie Review, Josh. I think you can track that all down through their Twitch streams, which should be in their history.
Yeah, because he just finished it.
Yeah. I mean, he breezes through that game, and they're really interesting playthroughs. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, it's I like it, man. You know, like I said, I kind of was like, all right, Brian, this week, man, what do you want to do? Originally, we were gonna do Spiral, the Saw movie.
Yep.
And then we saw the reviews.
And
we were like, holy shit, like, we can't even bring ourselves to spend money on a ticket.
Not enough to spend the ticket on it, and I'll watch it when it's on a streaming service. Yeah.
So we pivoted, and we were like, all right, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And boom, you know, you've been streaming Resident Evil.
Yes,
this
sir.
made perfect sense. You did a great job coming up with these rankings.
Yeah, it's been all the rage lately, so why not, right?
And I'll quick rundown again. So our rankings going from worst to first. So Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 6, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, Resident Evil 8 Village, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil, the OG, and Resident Evil 4. Yeah, it's a good job, man. I like it.
I want to hear what everyone else's is. If you're watching or listening and you play these games, let me know where I went wrong, what you liked, because this list was actually really fun. And I know that the fans have way different versions of this list, so I'm kind of...
I mean, I would have had it pretty damn close to what you had, except I would have had Resident Evil 2 at number 1.
Yep.
I would have bumped... honestly, Resident Evil 4 probably would have been 2 for me. The OG Resident Evil would have been 3.
Yep.
And then I probably... Again, it's tough for me because I haven't played Resident Evil 7.
Yeah.
But based on watching your Let's Plays, I probably would have put 8 next, then 7. And
yeah,
then,
you would have liked
I wasn't crazy about Resident Evil 3, man. I really wasn't. I think right where you have that, and then where you have 6 and 5, I would have been similar. So really, the only things I would have done, I would have bumped up 2 to number 1, and then I really just would have slid everything down.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think some people would put 8 over 7, depending on the kind of setting you like, but it was a cool list to do.
Actually, shit. Speaking of Josh, if you're listening, man, we got to get you on. We should do a ranking of all the Final Fantasy games.
Ooh.
Like the mainline games. That would be pretty cool to kind of see where we would differentiate and where we'd want to put them.
That'd be a good one, too.
Because if you want to talk about people that have opinions on games and where to rank them, I mean, we'd have a lot of Final Fantasy games to go through and rank.
Yeah. What's there, like 87 of them now?
It is the Final Fantasy that never ends.
Yes.
But I like it. Anything else you want to mention, Brian, before we sign off here?
No, I mean, it was a good episode. I can't wait to bring more Let's Plays because I'm having a blast doing it, and I'm excited to see where the story goes.
Hell yeah, man. I'll be doing the same. I'm going to be doing my Dark Souls soon. Biomutant, maybe. Soon future.
Yeah, make sure you're checking out the YouTube channel if you're not watching us right now because a lot's going on there. We're uploading every week, every other day sometimes. So
yeah, we're on Twitch as well, so keep an eye on our socials.
Yep.
All right, randos, we are out. Resident Evil, stay safe.
Bye.